So, hey everyone, and thanks Brian and thanks to Iris for another great job. So actually what's just happened there is kind of fed into my talk, and following on from what Kieran covered in the previous talk, it leads into some of my content. So hopefully that's a good thing. So protecting our data, our company's data and our assets is the responsibility of everybody. So it's not just an IT function. And so to do that, we need a better understanding of the potential threats and what we need to do and how we need to deal with them. Now, technology and process are important, but our people are our first line of defense. And they're the people we need to rely on protecting our assets. So I'm not telling you anything new, anything that you haven't heard, that you don't know already. However, very often it's getting the simple things right and really the attention to detail that can be as important in making an impact. Using the analogy of a car, you can have the best car in the world, fastest car, best engine, coolest looking car, best safety record, you name it. But that matters little if the person driving the car is reckless or they don't know how to drive. So I think that very much applies to securing our company's data as well. So I'm going to highlight some examples that show why a focus and investment on training and upskilling of our people is critical. And then I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we've been leveraging gamification at IBM to tackle the people challenges. We know that we're experiencing an ever-growing shortage of people and skills in cyber. And all of the trends show that this is going to continue. So now that's great if you're coming out of college or you're looking for a job move, but for employers that makes it very difficult. There are quite simply more open roles than there are skilled people to fill those jobs. And so the net effect of that is that we're all trying to hire from the same small pool of skills. And if we are lucky enough to find the right people, we have the challenge of trying to hold on to them and trying to enhance and grow those skills. And that's something that really, if we're going to make an impact on meeting the demand, well, we're going to have to look at alternative approaches to attract more people into cyber and to upskill our people. Very often companies spend a lot of time and effort, and quite rightly, on protecting their perimeter fence. However, a lot of attacks come from within. And this chart shows that over 50% of attacks are caused due to human error, system glitches, including IT and business process. Now, that's huge. And these things, our people, our process, all of these things, they're more within our control. So if we can focus on getting our own house in order, then we can have an impact in reducing our risk of breach. Looking at the attack sources by industry, we can see that they vary across industry. And that the vast majority are internal. Well, certainly it actually varies. For some industries, the vast majority are internal. So if you take financial services, over 58% of attacks come from the inside, with the vast majority being caused inadvertently. So for financial services, a focus on training of their people in areas such as protecting against phishing attacks, process monitoring, updated patching, all of those things make sense. So given that there is such a variation across industries, it makes sense that our mitigations and the strategies that we put in place, that we tailor them accordingly. Now, you're probably all familiar with the Target attack. So US retailer Target had a very public and costly breach a number of years ago. And the attack started via a phishing attack on one of its supply chain vendors. I think it was a cooling system supplier. and that was the initial attack. However, there were several instances and issues on the target side that ultimately allowed attackers to gain access to credit card data for millions of users. Now, what's interesting here is that actually Target had done a lot of things right. They had made some really good decisions, and they thought they were in a relatively good security posture. Yet when the attack happened, this was very clearly shown not to be the case, and the attackers were able to exploit some very serious weaknesses. And why I say that would be, so Target had gone through a fairly successful PCI compliance audit. So good thing, we're doing the right things, our exec teams are happy. That's a good thing. They were using encryption, another great thing. However, that encryption was rendered useless because the attackers were able to gain access to the data while it was in memory and it was unencrypted. Target had purchased a very expensive and comprehensive outsourced monitoring service, another really great thing to do. And while the attack was happening, that monitoring service alerted Target. However, Target staff did nothing. So they had made some really good decisions. They had invested in technology, but they hadn't gone the whole way. And their staff didn't know what to do with the intelligence that was provided to them from the monitoring company. So again, our people are key. When a breach happens, there's also very many other aspects of our business that are affected, share price being one of them, and people may lose their jobs. And our previous speaker referred to Equifax, and now so am I as well. They have been in the news quite a lot lately. But since the Equifax breach became public, their share price, I think the lowest drop was something like 35%. But their share price still has not recovered, and they have lost a number of their key execs, including their CEO, Richard Smith. Now, according to their ex-CEO, the cause of the breach was a combination of human and technological error. So the breach was due to a flaw in the Apache structs framework, and it turns out that a patch had been made available for this flaw 2 months before the breach happened. So Equifax, I should say, Equifax had 2 months to install that patch, but they didn't. And if they had, that breach may never have happened. To further compound things, a week after that patch was released, Equifax security staff ran some automated scans that should have picked up any systems that were unpatched, but they didn't find that. And then on top of that, as we know, Equifax did not disclose the breach until 6 weeks after they identified it. And we've all had our GDPR training. We know that when that comes into effect here, we have an obligation to report within 72 hours. So many, when we talk about, and they're not simple things, but they are the basics. They are the things that we need to know how to do. Went wrong. So I'm going to talk about patching, because Equifax are not the only company that have been caught out here. And we've had so many public breaches that could have been avoided. And we had lots of fun and games earlier in the year with WannaCry malware, ransomware, I should say. So given that we know that it's so important to have our patching up to date, we know the impact, we've seen how costly it can be. So why do we have this issue over and over again? Why can't we just have all of our patching up to date? It's a reasonable question. Well, as with most things in life, things are probably not as straightforward as they could be. So maybe companies are inundated with the sheer volume of patches. They're not leveraging automated patching solutions that can help. Patches sometimes can be confusing, they can be complex, they require testing, they may require other changes to our code before we can deploy them to production. There can be lots of reasons. Maybe the staff are unskilled, but all of these things can take time. And that can be the cause as to why they're not deployed straight away. We've also seen instances where hackers have got onto systems and they've updated the patching for us. They're very nice people and they don't want us to worry. 50% of what I just said there is true. They don't want us to worry. So they do this so that they can remain undetected on our systems for longer, or at least they hope they can. And we've come across situations where hackers have got onto a system and they've upgraded to a version of software with a known vulnerability, and then they've exploited the vulnerability, which is smart. So patching is important, no doubt about it, but it's not always the solution. When I look at the types of vulnerabilities that hackers exploit, again, we see a similar trend. We find that the same types of vulnerabilities are exploited over and over again. And some of these have been around a long time. So if you take a very common vulnerability like SQL injection, this has been around about 20 years at this stage. So 20 years, that's a long time for us to be getting it wrong and for hackers to be getting in and accessing our data from databases. Yet SQL injection is relatively easy to mitigate or to avoid. But again, we have it over and over again. And if we look at, well, why is that? Again, could be down to training and awareness. Could be down to the people who know, who have the skills, have moved on in the organization or they've moved out. If we look at graduate developers, they would typically stay 18 months to 2 years in their first job. So we have a lot of churn within our teams. So this is another example of where training and constant training and upskilling of our employees is critical. Because at the end of the day, if we can avoid the vulnerabilities, if we can get it as we're designing and writing our code so that they're not susceptible to these vulnerabilities, well, then that's where we want to be. So businesses have a very big challenge in trying to upskill a large number of people to a high degree of competence in a fairly short period of time. And then once we do that, to maintain and enhance those skills. Now, unless your full-time role is in security, being asked to, be more cyber aware or to test your incident response is probably one of many important and critical things that you're asked to do. So despite the importance, it can be difficult to get people to engage. And this is one of the reasons that we turned to gamification. Because people learn by doing. They're more likely to retain information, to try new things, if they're learning, if they're engaging, and if they're enjoying it. So, and gamification provides a framework that can facilitate this. So, I'm going to talk through some gamified exercises that we've been doing at IBM. And what we've been trying to do, it's kind of a case of trying different things depending on, so the exercise we will adopt will depend on the motivations and also what the learning outcomes are. We very much try to make sure that we can inject some fun and that we make them different from the norm so that, so that participants want to engage. Now, that's not always possible to achieve because one person's fun might be another person's hell. I see people who run marathons for fun. I'm even going to bingo tomorrow night. Well, that bit isn't for fun. It's somebody's idea of fun, but it's a fundraiser in my case. But the point is, people do go to bingo for fun. So it's not always easy to get something that resonates with everybody, but that's another reason why we try to vary it and do different things. And try not to be too hard on ourselves if we don't always get it right. So capture the flag, a CTF. That's one of the exercises that we use. So a CTF is it's a competition, and it's aimed at improving technical skills around network security, forensics, cryptography, reverse engineering, and so on. And participants earn points by completing challenges. So, for example, if you capture a server on a network, you get points. If you hold on to that server and you prevent other participants from capturing that server, you also get points. People generally participate in teams, and very often they'll assign roles within the team. And they do that so that they can achieve more quicker. It's a divide and conquer approach. And it is a competition, so the people who solve the challenges first get the most points, creating a race to the finish. As I'm sure you know, this conference runs a CTF every year. And this year, our IBM team have the privilege of running the CTF. So if the CTF is going on next door, and if you haven't been in there already, I'd encourage you to go in, walk around, soak up the atmosphere and think about how could such a competition or something similar help you and your organizations to upskill. So red-blue is another type of gamified exercise that we run. So with the red-blue experience, we provide a safe, sandboxed environment for our clients to stress test their business processes and also test their technical capabilities in an incident response. And we do that by creating real-life simulated scenarios. And we would incorporate the latest malware, latest tools, and so on. So when a client comes to us for a red-blue experience, we divide them into two teams. The first team is the red team, the attackers, and the other team is the blue team who are defending the network. And then we swap over. And we do that so that if you can gain an understanding of the tools attackers use, the psychology of an attacker, how they think, how they do their job, then that will put you in a better position to defend your network. In addition to these kind of technical, hands-on technical exercises, we also provide exercises that cater for all areas of an incident response. So these would be suitable for execs and other business functions and would incorporate things like dealing with the media, legal, process, and so on. And our clients use these not just to test their incident response, but also to identify where their strengths are and where they have gaps. Who's good at what? So that when an incident does occur, they're ready, they're prepared. And kind of similar to the incident that our last speaker was talking about, our emergency services don't wait until an incident happens before they go through their first experience. They drill, they test. And we need to do the same because we don't really know how we'll respond. We don't really know how we're set up and whether we're really prepared until we experience it. So just quickly looping back to target, which I talked about earlier, I want to look at, well, how could a red-blue experience, those types of experiences have helped here? Well, gaining an understanding of the data as it flowed through the system, encrypted and unencrypted, would certainly help, because if you remember, the attackers gained access to the data while it was in memory and it was unencrypted. And of course, staff training, so that when target staff, got intelligence from their outsourced monitoring team, that they knew how to interpret this data, and that they would know what to do, how to respond, so that they were prepared. So these are probably two of the most obvious benefits they would have got. So we've been running these types of experience at our Dublin office for quite a while, and at the moment we're building out a purpose-built red-blue area at our lab, and we're hoping to have it finished for by the end of the year and open for clients in the new year. So as a Thanksgiving gift, we're making 20 slots available for anybody here who would like to bring in some of your teams. The types of people you might look to bring in might be developers, SOC staff, test, DevOps, kind of technical staff that you would like to build an awareness of the types of threats and issues and get some training. Now we'd be looking at maybe bringing you in for about half a day, and we would take 8 to 10 people. So if you're smaller than that and you're interested, you can still look to sign up, and we may look at doing some group days. So if it's of interest to you. So as with everything, it's not a total free lunch. So we will hopefully provide an interesting and fun experience for you, and we'll look to you for your input and your feedback. And what would you like to see? What would help you in your business? So hopefully it'll be a win-win. So if you're interested, my colleague Jason Flood, who you will find next door in the CTF room, if you don't know him, he's the tall guy carrying a little black book. And if you can get him to open that black book, because he hasn't shown me what's in it, but he assures me that that black book is there to take your bookings. So if you do manage to get him to open that black book, let me know, because I'd like to know what's in it. So the offer stands for 1 day only for today. So we also have a gamified security platform that we have tailored especially for our developers. So again, going back to trying to avoid having the same issues reoccurring. So as our developers go through this platform and complete the challenges, they're learning about the most common types of vulnerabilities, how they're constructed, how hackers will exploit them, and how they can mitigate and avoid them. We also provide snippets of code that would contain vulnerabilities that can be identified via the good old source code review. So again aimed at a constant training. So this is our hackable city, which we call Hadley's Hope. So this is a real physical kinetic city that we created about 2 years ago. So when I say it's a real city, it has a number of city services that you may have in a city, such as power, lights, train, communications, and so on. So it is a real city. However, it's not like any city that you've ever visited. And if you have visited, it can only be after a big night out with lots of alcohol and many other substances, if you manage to get to a city like this. So Hadley's Hope is it's a 3D printed replica of the space colony called Hadley's Hope from the 80s movie Aliens. So, or some of the younger members may just know the recent version of Aliens, Aliens 2. So why did we build this? Well, as I mentioned, it has real city services, and each of those services can be compromised, so you can hack the city. And our initial motivation for building this city was that we wanted to get away from death by PowerPoint. We wanted a better way of being able to have meaningful discussions with our customers And we also wanted a better way of demoing our products. So the city's network is monitored by IBM Curator product. So it's monitoring the city and it's detecting the network and it's detecting anomalies. So as the city is being hacked, we can point up to the screen and show Curator is detecting something happening. So that's very powerful for us. It's also very powerful for us to be able to talk with our customers about the types of threats that they need to be concerned with IoT devices. And we can do that physically. So that was the initial motivation. Now, since then, we've actually got so many uses out of it. It's been referred to internally as the gift that keeps on giving, because we've brought it to colleges. We use it in our training exercises. We have it here today next door. It's part of our CTF. So participants in the CTF will get points for hacking the city. So it's something different, but it's worked. The challenges that we have in our cyber defense and in hiring, upskilling our employees and building a pipeline for the future, we're not going to solve those by traditional methods only. We need to look at alternatives. And education through gamification can have a real impact here. That's why we've spent such an investment in time and people, because we've seen the benefit. So if you haven't tried it, I encourage you to give it a go. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And more importantly, hopefully you and your colleagues, your staff will get something out of it. That's me. Thank you. Any questions? Hey. Well, those figures are they're the ones that I took. Those particular ones were internal, so they were caused inside the company's network. And when I say inadvertent, they're things like, and actually if you look at it, privilege abuse was by far and away the biggest offender. So, but a lot of it was, employees clicking on phishing attacks. A lot of it, again, as I say, privilege abuse, process failures, just lack of, maybe lack of care and attention. But it was those types of attacks. So they were internal. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.